Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Uh, my name is Divakar Menon. We'll just give it a couple of more minutes and just a minute or more, just so that I can see a lot more attendees joining in, and we'll begin shortly. Thank you. All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you're in. Welcome to the first of our Customer Speak webinar. And this time it's really about QA, automation, DevOps, and getting it all right and together. It's challenging as usual. And this time we have a very exciting panelist, so to speak, somebody I look up to and have a lot of respect for. And I'm sure you'll enjoy his views and thoughts. But just before we dive in there, a few things that might be good. As a participant, you'll be on mute throughout the session. You can post questions. As a part of this, there is a question box that you have. You can pose your questions. We will pick it up. There will be a couple of polls that will be distributed during the course of the webinar, just so that we can get engaged, we can understand your viewpoints. And there are a few handouts that you can download. Should you want to, there are articles that we have written, and that will enhance your experience once you listen to what's being said out here also. So the expected duration is about 35 to 40 minutes plus about 10 minutes of Q&A. And sit back, enjoy, and hope you have a great learning experience. In this, so I'm Divakar. I head the QA and testing practice at Trigent, and I'm proud to lead a great team out here in Trigent of people who take testing very passionately. And with me, I have Kangeyan Passoubady. Kangs, as he's known as, is the principal test architect at Socotra. Kangs has been passionate about testing right from the beginning. He's worked offshore. He's worked with product companies, with ISVs, different sizes of organizations, and is an expert at creating enterprise level test automation frameworks. Again, one of the great things that Kangs and I have always agreed on is choosing the right tools, the right technologies, and making sure that those tools that we choose are best serves the project or the program the best. Kangs is also a speaker at various events. He also runs. He also is a co-founder of the Kanban School that creates a lot of original content and provides training on test automation. Just a little bit of a diversion. Trigent, I represent Trigent. Trigent has both software development as well as a lot of QA practices that we do. We are amongst one of the 10 admired companies. We are there on Clutch, and in fact, one of the top 10 most admired companies within Clutch. We recently, in 2020, were declared the winners of the North American Software Testing Award for the best agile project that we undertook with one of our customers. You can also find us as leaders in the execution zone in the Zinnov zones. Our focus is on helping clients in their digital transformation journey. One of the key things is that we've been around for 25 years. We do a lot of work with a lot of customers, and a lot of our customers have stayed with us for a fairly long period of time, proving that that we are engaged with them, we understand their business, and we work as partners with them. Like I said, we are agile. We have lasting, successful relationships, build our own IP, especially in testing also, uh, and are very much present in the US. In this webinar, now coming back to this webinar, what we look at is about how to implement QA and automation in an agile and DevOps environment. I think a lot of our customers come back and always are challenged with this fact about, we want to get to market faster, we want to turn out our products faster, we want to speed up the, our rate of deployment. And while and testing turns out to be one of those critical cog in the wheels that we need to manage, and it brings with itself its own set of challenges. It's also about getting to market faster, and that's where automation comes in. That's where, when you're working with distributed teams, how do you work effectively with all of these distributed teams? What kind of collaboration practices, etc., do you need to put in place? And what kind of mechanisms do you need to put in place to ensure that you have a smooth journey? So over to Kangs. Kangs, welcome to this webinar. And Kangs, welcome to this webinar. And I'll transfer control over to you. And one of the key things that one would like to understand, right? I mean, I know our interactions have been great. One of the key things is for you to give an audience a perspective of your journey and how your automation, both your testing and your test automation journey, has been over in the last few years. That would be great to understand. Over to you, Kangs.
Thanks, Diwakar. Let me share my screen. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks, Diwakar, for that great introduction. So I am going to start with like my journey from when I graduated from my Master in Computer Applications in Pondicherry, moved first time to Hyderabad out of my state. I was excited. My journey towards like IT. I have not even thought about going into IT actually when I was growing up. Somehow ended up there. When I joined in 1998 in GE, that's the predominant time for like 401k Y2K problem, where people struggle to change from 2-digit to 4-digit actually, right? That's my simplest problem. It looks like during 2000 it was a huge issue actually. 1998 I was started working on that particular issue along with the GE GDC actually, General Electric Global Development Center. That time I working for a product called Pan Credit software system. It's a leasing and lending product, which is mainly focusing for the customer to banking system actually. It's a huge system. I used to spend a lot of time to change like it's like boilerplate code, look for like wherever there is a date there, change from 2-digit to 4-digit actually. So that is where the QA started for me. Even though as a developer, whatever I did there, that's actually a QA. It would have not happened if they thought about like 4 digits, like when they started actually. That's how like the QA's importance I understood from the day one when I joined the industry actually. We all know that like we started from waterfall model. In any person who come through IT, they know that like you start you somewhere along the process, even within agile model, always there is a waterfall model exists actually. Still I believe in actually. There is a requirement collection and design, and then the implementation and the testing and then maintenance. Only the thing is now the things are moving fast, right? So in terms of here, the testing with when I worked during that time, I was predominantly like any other projects which I worked. the testing always comes at the end actually, right? And then like it goes into maintenance, but full product need to be developed ahead of time. Now, if you look from that perspective, then actually I was working with Satyam. Satyam was now Tech Mahindra currently. They are predominantly using capability maturity model actually. They were at the time CMM level 3 company, then they were moving to 4, 5 like that actually, because you have to certify it for each level. There is a different process for it. It's very hard process, and every project need to be, wherever you want to certify for CMM level 5, you have to go through set of documentation actually. Each and everything whatever you do, you have to create documentation to support it. It meets the quality criteria actually. So that is how I have spent some time creating those document part of the CMM level for 3 organization. It actually like now it become Tech Mahindra, but when I was working it was Satyam. So that is where like where I got introduced into quality more. And also down the line I started working few projects with different organization. One other thing is like V model, where the verification phases starts at the early, then the validation phases after the coding starts actually. Once the coding finishes, the unit testing, integration testing, system testing, acceptance testing, all those things get started. But one good thing about V model is whenever there is a requirement design, always people started looking for how to create acceptance test cases. Whenever there is a system design, they always know how to create system test cases. They will start writing. Whenever there is an architecture design, they will start creating integration test cases actually. Whenever there is a module, then they'll look for like what are the unit test cases need to come up. It's not that like they need to wait for until the coding finishes. At least some process starts earlier there actually. I predominantly worked most of the time with GE, and I moved to Cisco. Those companies, they used Six Sigma process because they are heavily hardware-based company. Then slowly they moved to software-based. Even though I was working software, they within software also they started using Six Sigma actually, where define, measure, analyze, improve, control. They are the main focus actually. The Six Sigma also, one of the thing what I see is they have a lot of documentation. Each and every way, the documentation is more than the actual process or actually get done the work actually. So sometimes it is so tiring, but I enjoyed those diagrams, all those different things along the way to create it during that time. But it is actually like quite a bit of time actually. Like it takes about a year to complete a good solid project actually. It's not like you could see the real product at the beginning. So that is one thing I missed in Six Sigma actually. Now from there, like we all know that we move to agile process actually. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this particular slide. The reason is like the entire world or entire IT is moving towards agile testing techniques, right? So if you look out in this one, the unit testing is actually quarter 1, quadrant. They call quadrant actually Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4 like that actually. Each quadrant has specific meaning, what you need to achieve, how you need to achieve actually, right? So if you look out, each one has automation and manual tests, manual tests, special tool and automation tests. See, these 4 together is what agile testing technique actually. For a lot of people, they will do one or other, but not everything inclusive actually. That's another thing what I see actually. When you look out agile testing quadrants, the Q1 focuses on internal code quality, and it consists the test cases which are technically driven and are implemented to support the team actually. Mostly quarter 1 are unit test cases and component test cases which you need to create them actually. Quadrant 2 focuses mainly for business driven, what it got implemented, functional. You need to look out the functionality of that particular aspect of whatever you are creating. Then you need to come up with examples how to test it. Coming up with a story, how to what this feature, how I can come up with a story, how I could test it out. Actually, you need to create a prototype or simulate whatever created in the quadrant 1 actually. Then you start testing it out. Then comes with the quadrant 3, where the exploratory testing is predominantly used actually. Because of not waterfall model, we don't have a lot of time to test the entire application. The exploratory testing is very, very important when you go to agile testing, agile testing especially actually, where you need to check like usability testing, exploratory testing, and pair testing with the customer, collaboration testing, user acceptance testing. Like that, several kind of testing you could achieve during the exploratory testing actually. Quarter 4, this is where like predominantly like when it facing external customer, you need to look out performance, load testing. We are going to look at later point of time in depth what are the tools we are going to use. Also, I could explain that as well actually. Like here, in fact, like if you look out, a non-functional aspect is where the quadrant 4 actually predominantly we are looking at it. Non-functional means like security testing, infrastructure testing, data migration testing, scalability testing, load testing, all of them actually. When you look out agile testing, we are also, I'm going to move to the next slide. Agile Kanban requirements actually, like most of the time, not a lot of organization uses the exact agile process as well as actually, like a lot of DevOps team, they go for Kanban. Within the Kanban, if you look out, where this looks like small diagram, you could see it, where you start planning the requirement. It's kind of an iterative process actually. Every time there is a change, that change you test it and then get a sign off. Then you move into system testing and then release it actually. Okay, you always like start requirement planning, next iteration of your requirement. The requirement itself change over a period of time actually. It's need to be continuously improved, and development also need to be done for that, but continuous improvement of the requirement. And then like you are testing along the way actually. So that is my journey, Diwakar. Basically how I started 1998 to now 2021 actually. It's a great journey. I love that so far whatever in the software development process, I'm able to go through all of them actually.
Excellent, Kangs. Thanks. That kind of summarized quite a bit about the history of software development itself. I mean, in a way, one of the things that you mentioned as part of the quadrants that you were focused on, we can see the interplay between a lot of what you called exploratory testing, a lot of automation, just to make sure that and the focus on automation to get that product out to market faster. I mean, I think the whole journey of agile DevOps is really about now getting time to market and about trying to move that. And in fact, for some of our customers, when we look at it, we don't just say test and automation become an integrated part of what we call testing, right? It's really not about saying testing. I mean, we really need to make sure that when we take responsibility for a product and its quality, we are automating to a large extent. And a lot of what you indicated out there is kind of sums up, which brings me to a very interesting point where we can kind of launch a very quick poll to just find out where people are, because the next section is really what I would like to get your view on automation. But before I get your view on automation, I'd just like to understand from the audience where they are on their automation journey. So I have opened up a poll. So folks, just take some of these in terms of where do you stand with respect to your automation journey, and we'd love to understand that, so that following on that, we can really get a sense of how the conversation with Kangs can really move forward also. So I'll give you not really fastest finger first, but we'll so really it's about are you sufficiently automated both from a functional API? Are you doing a lot of front end, which is what I mean by functional automation with very little API? Do you do very little automation and you think that there is a need for increased coverage? Or there are times when some of our customers have not felt the need for automating their products, right? It's usually that way. So good. So we have about 55% that has voted. Come on, folks. Good to get a good sense of where we stand. Okay, so if you haven't voted, here's where we are. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to close the poll, and then let's take a look at the results. Yeah. Okay, so how do I share the test results? Show the share. Yeah, okay, fine. This is interesting. We have about 45% of people who have focused a lot of their energies on what I would call end-to-end front-end automation, with very little API automation, and kind of contradicts a little bit of what your quadrant's also emphasizing on, Kangs. A lot of about 30% who says they do a fair amount of functional and API, which is quite good actually, and 25% which are with very little automation. So yeah, so there is scope for improvement out there, and let's get on, Kangs, to what I would really call your passion for test automation, both from you looked at I know you've dabbled with functional automation, API, across web, mobile, different experiences. Just give me a bit of insight in terms of your experience with automation tools, and now this whole move towards AI, and which is that genie elephant in the room, or the genie in the box, which everybody wants to speak of, and what is your sense of where these tools are headed?
Great question, Diwakar. Actually, this is one of the interesting things to talk about, right? So when you look out automation testing, it's not at the end. Actually, a lot of people only focus on web application automation. That's what I see predominantly. But the testing is everywhere actually. Even when you get the requirement, you need to test the requirement whether it is correct actually before even doing the development actually. So that's where the testing starts, because there should be one person looking at the requirement, asking the question: is this required? Is this is this need to be changed? How it flows through? A lot of different question arises when you create a product actually, right? So that starts actually. Then the coding part starts whenever coding. The unit testing gets started actually. Then from there it moves into integration testing and system testing. Then from there we are moving into alpha and beta testing, then regular acceptance and operational acceptance testing. All those things actually happening actually, right? So from my experience, the journey, if you look out, the tools what I have used, variety of tools over a period of time, like 1998 to now, I have used it actually. When I initially was working here, when I moved to Bay Area, California, especially in the Fremont area, what I did is I started looking out tools. I used to be a developer. I used to look out the tools. PA is very interesting field. It's kind of emerging. Let's take a tool which is going to be worth to do my journey actually. That's how I started looking at Selenium IDE, Selenium WebDriver. Those times it's called Selenium Remote Control actually. In the Bay Area, there was no one actually teaching. Like a lot of people still doing like manual during 2006-7 period. I'm looking at it actually, and there are a lot of people, they want to move to QA as well actually. So there is a influx of people, they want to like get into IT, but to get into IT, QA is the easiest way actually. They don't need to do like a lot of degrees to do that actually. They could get into manual, but they need to do something automation. There is a lack of learning how to learn these tools actually. That's how I went into the space created. Like when I started teaching, actually I was started in my garage actually. How everybody started in their own garage. I had a tandem garage still. I remember in Fremont, there used to be 10-15 students. They used to come. They used to do actually, like my wife used to make coffee for everyone. We used to go and serve them actually. That's how actually, like in my home, I started like teaching and training, especially like the Selenium IDE. Those time I started with Ruby. Ruby is the one predominantly I used for teaching Selenium remote control along with Selenium Grid. Then later over a period of time, I changed like Python, Java. The journey also, because the enterprise level, once it started picking up automation tools, Java is predominantly used actually. That time I was using like Selenium WebDriver along with the third-party tools like cloud-based servers like Sauce Labs, Browser Stack, etc. actually. Then the existence of smartphone came actually. When the smartphone came, what happened is like there is lot of things to get automated. Then the Appium came into existence. That is where like the other things came, right? So mobile testing get into a full scape actually. Now in the journey, if you look out, there is a next generation tools actually now. Cypress, Testcafe, I call them as next generation tools. Those also came into existence actually. So here I'm just putting like few predominantly used used tools within the web and mobile application automation. In this, pretty much every one of them I used one or other point of time, or I have taught, trained, or mentored many students along the way. Still, I use Selenium, I use Protractor, I use Cypress. So some of them like Capybara I don't use right now, which I started. Sikuli I don't use right now, but still these tools are great tools. There are a lot of options available actually. Before we had very less number of tools available for automation. Now there are a lot of different tools available. So that comes into also how we choose this tool, how we utilize this tool to make our automation better actually, right? So that always a burning question. Oh, I select this tool that has these pros. I select this tool, this has a pro, but this gives like this kind of like, I don't have developer, I don't have a QA tester to understand this tool actually, right? So there are a lot of questions before choosing a tool. So when I choose the tool, what I do is look out the current developer who are all having this great skill, how I can get additional uh, additional help from my offshore team actually. Either I use our Trigent is a great help for us there actually. Whenever we need a specific, if I do a prototype, I see this is a great tool, I want to move into this tool, I first look out the resources available. When we don't have a resources, I always go and ask for Trigent. Oh, okay, do we have a resources who can understand Node.js, who can understand JavaScript, who can understand TypeScript? They are able to provide so far very good support for us. Whenever we needed resources, they were able to give it to us. So it was very easy for us to move from Selenium WebDriver. Recently, we have a web application front end. We have currently using Selenium WebDriver. We are planning to we are actually still not rolled out this product actually, front end V2, that we are currently testing. That we are predominantly using Cypress as the tool for entire web application automation. We are using Trigent as the full source for entire architecting to creating all the test cases actually, right? But one of the thing what I am also want to tell our audience is like, look out not only web application automation, other functional aspect, non-functional aspect also while you are testing. Even page load is the performance testing, you need to look at it actually, right? So when you look out the performance testing, what are the things you need to look out is like stability, resource usage, speed, response time, and throughput actually. These are all the important metrics you need to collect, and then that metrics need to be put into your dashboard so that like it should be visible. And whenever the metrics, whenever you have a threshold, it reaches the threshold. When it is not it is going away from your performance goals, then you need to tell to your developer, bring it. It's like anyone P1, like unless the customer complains, if you take an action, that it is not a good thing actually. You have to proactively do it actually. Some of the tools along the way I used, performance testing tool is JMeter. Predominantly I used many years actually. Then last 2-3 years I have been interested into Locust actually. That is what predominantly now we use actually. There are other tools, open source tools also, like Famous, Predator, Gatling. K6 also has commercial support. That's also a new tool which I liked. I did a small prototype, it looked really good actually, but I have not commercially yet used it actually. So those kind of tools, and a lot of like if you go on Google it, you'll get like another 100 tools actually, right? Even so the performance tools are there. Now you need to look out what is the capability, and the one thing is you need to constantly monitoring and making sure you implement the threshold. And when the threshold things, any other, like you need to keep it as a P1 issue and make sure you work on it actually. From there I'm planning to move into artificial intelligence actually, like where AI, what is the need for AI, why, what kind of artificial intelligence in terms of testing, what we are looking, what kind of tools available, what what is the advantage of using artificial intelligence AI in our product testing or project testing actually, right? So if you look at AI technologies, it is available everywhere actually, right? So I'm just moving into artificial intelligence testing, why we need it actually, AI testing. So we most of the time AI can mimic like a real user, and when the real user takes some decisions, go through certain buying some product or something, AI can look out those paths what they are constantly traveling actually, automatically can detect it and try to look for those different paths and then test it in the pre-production environment actually automatically. And we use Selenium WebDriver, any other, most of the tools in the current market who predominantly coded, they are all needed like locators, which is fundamentally an aspect which it keeps your test cases failing very often actually. You need to find how self-healing these locators actually, right? Self-healing, auto-correcting whenever there is a failure, that is that needed. Visual testing, that is very easy to compare multiple screens, multiple devices, and provide feedback to you when there is a layout changes. That can be AI can be used. Codeless record and playback can be used. Repeatable, reliable, secured, collection of test cases, collection of paths can be achieved using AI. If you provide an input as a human readable format, AI can give you a solution for you. There are several tools in the market right now: Test AI, Maple, Test Gold, Walrus, Test IM, all of them actually, right? So Test Gold in this one, the middle one which I show here, this basically very small tool, but it gives like, these are all the locators you're using. These locators are broken in the current build. Oh, here is a new locator, go and fix it. Kind of very simple tool, but it gives elegant, like where the pain point is there, it's trying to look out that pain point and I'm trying to solve that pain point actually. So now I'm moving to other tools actually. If you look out Apply tools here, that's predominantly used for visual testing. Prod Perfect is one tool which I told you in the previous. Whenever in the production, based on your customer base, when they make some decision to go certain path, it automatically gets that path. Similar path in pre-prod it's trying to do. Even within production, it tries to test, if anything broken, it will intimate you immediately actually. So those kind of tools nowadays in the market, not only these listed tools, there are there are a lot of other tools every day comes in, but you need to look out, prototype them, and whether it is you are comfortable to use them actually. And also codeless is another aspect comes into picture when I use AI. That is also you need to look like in very short period how you could make your test cases much faster with the because the needs are changing. A lot of integration comes up, so you need to look out those AI based tools as well actually. So that's about the tools, Diwakar.
You've covered a lot of ground, Kangs. Really a lot of ground in that automation journey of yours. I think I'm going to fast forward things a bit now in the interest of time also, and really come down to what we're seeing a lot of our customers come to, really about DevOps and continuous testing, and really focus on the continuous testing aspects, because that's where I think we see a lot of action. People struggling with, okay, so how do I make sure that I build the right set of scenarios, I build the right set of test cases, I integrate and collaborate closely with developers. How do I get that tested? In fact, a lot of our clients, when we start to work with them, it's not really about the testing itself, but it's about fixing the process and the pipeline itself that we need to work along with them. And gradually we mature towards a point where it keeps improving as we go further, right? So you talked about so I just want to fast forward one whole section and move straight to the continuous testing aspects of DevOps. And what do you see as coming to the goals, and what do you see as tips or pointers that you can tell our folks about what was worked well for you?
Definitely. When I look at continuous testing, so still I work for many enterprise companies as well as startup companies. continuous testing is always still a dream. Even we try to push forward it. It is not easy to achieve actually. Code is committed, the build is getting like continuous integration is something going on. Continuous delivery also is possible. Sometimes continuous deployment also happening, but continuous testing is never happening in any of the companies where I work. That is one thing which I am trying to struggle to get achieved there actually. These are all the 5 points I'm going to give it to you guys. In terms of code commit happens easily, but what the thing is, when the developer commits the code, whether they are testing in that environment where it is going to run, it is not there actually. So the developer should have an environment which is equivalent to production in your own machine, like using Docker containers or Kubernetes, whatever the infrastructure needed, you should have that environment while you develop. So lot of things what is we are finding the problems in production can be removed actually. Then shift left QA actually, like when you are when you try to do QA, it's not like preventing defects before it goes into production is very important than like finding there actually. Everyone should be a tester. You need to get integrate and get a feedback as quickly as possible actually. That's about continuous testing, Diwakar.
Okay, that's really good. In fact, this model of continuous testing, and I want to take a slight digression out here, more because uh, when we're talking, and you mentioned about Kubernetes, you mentioned about containers, you mentioned about deployments, right? And there is this whole architectural world that is now moving towards microservices, the whole containerization, right? And how are you seeing this trend, and how are you seeing testing challenges that are being looked at in this whole microservices world, right? I mean, it's an interesting problem, and it is something that I see people looking at it at one very, very superficial level, but it would be good to understand your take on this.
Sure. The entire world, still, there are companies already moved into microservices. There are companies still in moving into microservice architecture. Even small companies, big companies, every company is struggling to achieve this one actually. When you look at microservice architecture, it also brings good problems for us how to test it actually, right? So from the testing aspect, if you look out, this is the testing pyramid. You need to have unit test cases, integration test cases, component, end-to-end, and then exploratory test cases actually. So when you move into microservice architecture, my thing is you push more test cases within the unit level actually, because as it goes into integration level, it's going to be very expensive actually. As it goes into upper into the pyramid, it is more and more expensive to create and maintain them actually. So, and also when you create at the layer level, like you need to look at the narrowed scope instead of like testing everything every time. It's going to be very expensive. Look out the components which is changed, where the contract is changed. Look out those things and then only test them, certify them, and then move on to the next thing actually. Because there are a number of tools, they are all interconnected one to other. It is impossible to test all of them at all the time actually. So you need to make sure locally whatever you are changing, whatever the contract you agreed, as long as you don't change the contract, or if you change the contract, tell them upfront actually 6 months before, 3 months before, this is going to get deprecated, this is what we are going to change. That way, like your customers, end users also have sufficient time to change that microservices related changes, whatever you are coming into picture actually, right? When you look out microservices testing, this one I took it from Martin Fowler's website. You could look out like component, contract, exploratory testing, integration testing. These are all part and parcel of microservices architecture. And the exploratory testing is something which I want to really mention, that like it's impossible to automate everything. Even if you try to do it, it is sometimes not possible. So exploratory testing for each feature is very important, which I would suggest to use it. There are a lot of tools which is specifically used for microservices architecture. The very simplest tool is Postman. Actually, Postman is where like APIs are get tested very easily. Then Swagger documentation, I strongly recommend you to if your dev team not creating, please tell them to create it. There are other tools specifically coming into the market which is focusing on microservices testing. Few of them I have listed in this one actually. So that's about like microservices testing actually. Like, so this gives some ideas for us, the viewers, to look out this microservices testing tool. You could Google it, get more information, prototype it, and use it.
Perfect.
That's
Thanks.
about.
Thanks. Oh, that's great. Thanks. Just a reminder to the audience: please pose your questions. Float them across. We'll pick them up as we come towards the end of our discussion. But feel free to post it at any time during the as we're continuing this conversation. Right. So, thanks. We covered a whole big ground, right? You came from a very highly regimented documentation kind of environment to agile DevOps, where documentation is very strictly on a need to know or need to be basis, right? It's not reams and reams of documentation. Everything stays with the story, dies once the story is created, and then evolves into the next story as a new set of documentation, right? So
Yes.
Which makes the minimalistic documentation that is there, the speed at which things are happening in terms of trying to get products out to the market. Now we're talking about working also with remote teams. It doesn't matter where the teams are. I mean, one is a time zone difference, yeah, that's fine. But given the last 1 year, everybody's been remote in a way, right? So this whole aspect of collaboration, working with outsourced teams, etc. I would like to get your views on your experiences with it. But before I do that, I want to launch a small poll and get the audience view on what they think has been their experience with it. So your outsourcing journey, if you have outsourced, has been positive, great outcomes, has been positive, scope for improvement, you are considering outsourcing for the short term, or you will not be considering outsourcing. Okay, so feel free to vote. Feel free to let know what your journey has been about. I want to get Kangs to share his experiences after this. So go ahead, folks. Okay. I think we have quite a few people who are slightly passive. We'll give them another moment or two, and we'll see how. Go ahead. Yep. And all right, great. So we have about 65% of the people who have voted, which is not bad, and a great many agree that they have been very positive outcomes and scope for improvement too. Whereas very smaller percentage has been looking towards outsourcing in the shorter term, which is good to know. We'll definitely reach out to you all, but that's not the point, right? The point is now to understand from Kangs, because I have known Kangs and I know that we worked with Trigent over the last 5-6 years, Kangs,
Yes.
across different customers, different kinds of engagements, and I know you have also been a part of an offshore team. You have worked there on the other side of the fence. What has worked well? What hasn't worked well? What would you think that audience should really take away to make a very successful, that people with scope for improvement can really take some lessons out from there and say, yeah, this is good.
Yes, definitely. So when I look out offshore team, how I look out is like, from my perspective, I always looked out my offshore team as an extended I don't treat them as separate entity actually. I treat them as extended company of my own company actually. Try to give the same culture, same kind of treatment. How I do my current organization where I work actually. Always keep the communication channels open, especially for developers when they commit the features at the end of the day. The good thing is the next day morning it need to be tested actually. That is possible by using offshore model actually. So always if you look out the offshore model, there are things which is always working good. There are things always need improvement actually. So I have from my perspective, I put some of the pros here actually. There are some cons there. From it differs from organization to organization. When you work with the offshore team, come up with a good quality standard, tell them to meet it. That's very important. As long as they follow that standard, it would be good for overall thing. And always keep increased communication. You never reduce, things goes correct, don't reduce your communication. You need to more whatever you do, if things works good, that means you have to do more communication. It's not like you need to stop communicating. That's one thing. Positive environment. You need to build an environment where your offshore team members can provide feedback about your product, and that you could incorporate in such a way that your product can evolve better. It also, great cost reducer for us, increase the productivity. Scaling up and down is very easy, especially for the current project what we are working on. We suddenly needed like 4 or 5 resources. Immediately we were able to ask Trigent. Within a week, we are working with a huge team actually. It's impossible for us to do ourselves here. It would take months and months to hire like five folks, the right folks actually. Right, so that's a great advantage using the remote teams. And some of the things you also need to be very clear actually, like when you be clear on what is expected from the offshore team, communicate to them, and keep your collaboration very close to them, and keep your management interested. Always show the progress what is done by offshore team. That's very important. And look for any security issues actually, because always when it is going to offshore, there is concern for many organizations when you deal with the HIPAA, PHI, all those things actually. Those security issues also, like you need to be on tap, like work with your vendor whether they meet all those standards you are expecting. Those are the things I could look at it and inform you actually. Thanks, Diwakar.
Perfect. Thanks, Kangs. Kangs, I really appreciate this. This has been like a wondrous journey across the entire software cycle. I mean, you kind of nailed the whole history of software development down. And there are quite a few people who have asked a lot of questions, very interesting ones. For those who don't know, there are handouts that are available that can augment what you may have heard during the call, during this talk, or you can feel free to, if they don't, to reach out to us. We'll try and take in as many questions that we can during this in the time that's available. Couple of things. What is the process that is in place to keep automation tests relevant? Basically, the maintenance of tests. I mean, each time there's a change, tests go out of sync, and there's a lot of refactoring that happens. Ken, what do you think? What do you typically do?
So the one of the thing I always insist with my team is think about how important to create the test cases. That's the same importance you need to give to repair your test cases. Actually, that is something like I don't see many organizations focusing. Like they start with 100 test cases, suddenly you see 1,000 test cases there, all of them running. We don't know why it runs. It never failed, so we keep it. Suddenly it fails all the test cases. You need to go and figure it out what test cases, why it failed. So always when you add new features, new thing, the test cases are okay, but remove test cases no longer needed actually, archive them, right? So that is a great thing. That way you could maintain small set of needed test cases, make your test case much faster actually. That way, like it is easy to maintain. Look for ways to generate your test cases actually. That's one of the things what I try to do. If you are able to generate your automated test cases, that will lot of time make it easy for you.
Right. Okay, cool. And one of the things that we possibly also could look at is making them into smaller functional scenarios that you can localize kind of changes into, right? So that's also another way that you can minimize the amount of time that you spend in trying to make this change. But Kang, very interesting. Thanks for that. Uh, Another question: in this new world where security is front and center, why not include security testing in unit tests where you can?
Oh, absolutely. I love that idea actually. Like one of the thing, like any organization I work, I tell them to implement like at least SonarQube, like some static analyzer to start with. The static analyzer most of the time um, try to find the developer related the code issues. Within our organization, what we did, like we looked out different tools. We implemented some tools actually for developer to periodically every month they need to go through this training actually. They need to mandatory training they need to do. That way they we currently use a tool called secure code warrior. There are there are other tools also available in the market, but those you need to not only have an environment, that environment is you need to create where it is you need to spend the time 1 hour 2 hour every month to do that secured way of writing code actually. It's very important.
Excellent. I think this is where you're really shifting left QA, right? Right into the
Yes,
developers,
yes,
letting them
yes.
write it well. We don't need our jobs as testers.
Yes, yes. One of the AI tools also, like I put it actually, there is an IntelliJ idea plugin also there actually. That tool predominantly actually allows you to write automated unit test cases as well. Actually, it provides. If you have time, take a look out this diff blue AI for code actually. So a diff blue AI for code that
Okay.
provides. You could Google it, you will get it actually. So that provides how to write unit test cases automatically as well as some sample codes. Also there are secure code warrior like that. Also they have a plugin which allows while you are creating the code, it points out how you could improvise actually. Those kind of things also you could add up.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks, Kang. I think there are a couple of questions. Yes, the slide deck, we'll try and make that available in person to whoever requests it. Uh, I see that as a question that's being asked. So if you do want it, just pose a question out here. I'll speak to Kangs and see how we could share that. But the recording of this webinar will definitely be available to everybody. Uh, Coming back to questions, a couple of questions on AI. What kind of testing is not suitable for AI? And there is also, while what sort of testing is not suitable, there are also a question on how how AI-based tools work on its own, right? I mean, that's probably a very big question, a webinar by itself, probably. But maybe, Kangs, if you can just touch upon what kind of testing is not suitable to AI, what would you leave to AI, and what wouldn't you, right? And,
So from my current point of view, AI is still not matured actually. Even if you could use some portion, some part of your application AI, and even the codeless automation, it's still painful to it's better to write the code sometimes than using these tools manually, like trying to come up with the test cases. Actually, that's how I feel actually. I don't, the thing is it's maturing. It need to mature good enough way. I think like how like in 2006-7 period when Selim ID, Selim remote control came, nobody believed that actually. But now Selim WebDriver is a default one. Even after 15 years, still people, it's a decade, more than a decade old product, still we are able to continuously improving and using it. So likewise, AI also will improve. You could start with some any one application. Even like here I was telling you test goal, very simplest problem it's trying to solve is, oh, these are all the locators. Okay, it changed now from the last build to right now. That's why your build is what is a suitable new locator for this. Use where you need it, only for specific places, not all the places actually. It will be impossible, and you need to trust as well actually. You need to it takes a lot of time to trust the results as well actually.
okay, cool. Yeah, I completely agree with you. In fact, I would leave AI to help me with my Netflix recommendations. Probably not if I was to make a release into production, right?
Yeah, not it. It will be there.
Not yet.
It's another, yes, not it. Another 5 years.
Not correct.
It need to improvise still more actually to directly release
Yeah.
into production.
And I think I can see that evolution of maturity that's coming in. There is yes, we will definitely, we could send you more details. There was a question on, talking about offshoring. We would definitely send you some more details on that. Lastly, there was one question on, and reach out to you in particular uh, to get some more details around your query. Lastly, there was one query on the testing pyramid. Does each layer going up from the base imply less testing coverage? If yes, what is the average distribution in percentages? That is, how much of unit testing, how much of integration testing, or what percentage of your total testing should be unit integration and end-to-end, etc.?
That's a great question, actually. Like, in fact, I had a slide in my previous organization. I did actually, but it varies from company to company. Actually, it's not. It's also like application to application where you need to concentrate more. Actually, it need little bit in depth. But I would tell a lot of people focus on 100% unit test cases. Unit test cases or unit test cases. It's not going to cover all of your bugs. It's not going to find all your bugs. So unit test cases even at 80%. In the current organization, I usually tell, like, for web application, even 40% of unit test cases is good enough actually. Remaining need to be covered under the web application test. But if you are API level, probably like 80% coverage of unit is good. So it is depending on what is your tool, what is your application actually, right? So that the proportion, how you need to come up with that magic number, it varies actually by application, by the tool set, what you are actually selected actually. Predominantly, I will tell, like, anywhere 80% of unit test cases is good enough actually. Then remaining 20% should covered by all the other things actually. So what I'm telling is, like, right, when you go to microservice architecture, unit test cases is a must, and then go to integration component, end-to-end, and exploratory actually. But each should be within the scope of your, like, for an example, if I have like 3000 API test cases, but at the next layer you could reduce, and then come up with that number actually. That number I don't know for your application.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And what I'm hearing you say, Kang, is there's no magic formula to compute that number that says this is an ideal distribution, right? It
Yes.
really depends on the application.
In the past, I did come up with that number. Yeah. Yeah. Correct.
Right. I mean, if I was Tesla and launching SpaceX, I would do 100% of unit test coverage, for example, right? I memean, I wouldn't leave that to chance for sure.
Yeah,
right?
Six Sigma, that's why it came, like, they look for 99.9999% actually, 9999% of 6 digits, 7 digits actually, depending on what kind of, if you're trying to do a flight, even 0.1%, 0.001 failure is you are in the middle of the ocean actually, right? So you should be careful. What product you are, the quality differs. What need to cover will differ depending on the application.
Yeah, it's a lot dependent on the risk that you really, what happens if you fail, right? I think that's the question to ask at any point in time. So that's like really the last of the questions that we've had. We did have one question, which was, and I think we have another. We've already way overshot that, but we can take that very quickly. Is it possible to automate within sprint? And I know that we've done that for some of our customers, but I'll leave that in terms of how we're doing it with Socotra.
That's a great question. Even we are trying to go there. We are not yet there. That is, in some organization, I try to achieve it actually. Some organization, it's very hard because already, like, the homegrown applications are like huge. There is a test coverage is not enough. But for the new application, we could try to achieve that actually. It's not like something hard, but you need to pre-plan, and also resources needed actually. When when the resources are very limited, and the cost is also increases actually, like when you have like more testing if we go actually. So that's how, like, Trigent helps out actually. Cost wise, it is actually less, as well as we currently not focusing, but our next quarter we are we are planning to move into that area. Actually, continuous testing is one of our aspiring things for this year to get achieved. Actually, yes, it is possible. I did it. Some of my other companies actually.
Okay, cool, great. So whoever wants a copy of the slide deck, kindly drop a question out here, and I'll check with Kangs in terms of because he's also within certain NDAs, etc. So I cannot commit on his behalf. I will definitely check back with Kangs, and if it's possible, definitely send you all a response back on that. Either the deck or a very nice message about why it is or it is impossible to share the deck. But yeah, Kangs, really thanks a lot. I really appreciate you taking the time to come here to set up this whole webinar, to prepare for it, and really give a lot of your insights about your entire journey, the automation, DevOps, and continuous testing. I think this is a great session for me. I learned a lot, and I hope the audience has learned a lot too. So thanks, Kangs. Much appreciated. Have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you, Diwakar. This is a great opportunity to talk about like what I know, what I'm passionate about it, and thanks for giving me an opportunity to give my message to others, what I learned. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Kangs. And yes, I am seeing those messages in the questions. So please, I'll keep the webinar open. But thanks, Kangs. I'll let you go for another 2 minutes for anybody who wants to post a question to say that they would like the slide deck. Thank you.